And it's controversial, but I don't really care.
Do it, say it.
Consider yourself rebuked, Harvard Business Review.
You have to earn the right to get to the next level.
Process audit, not people audit.
I just want to see this done faster.
How many licks does it actually take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
I was kind of being facetious a little bit.
3,
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
2,
It's true.
1.
But we can cut that out.
Trump and Zelenskyy. So they met this week talking about their aid to Ukraine. Got kind of heated. Have you guys watched any of the videos on that?
I mean, I can't go through social right now without seeing it on every platform. So, yeah.
So yes.
I'm a little done with it, actually. It's all covered.
So initial thoughts on that.
I mean, I think it was kind of pre-planned, in my opinion. I think, it felt very, like tensions were already there. Like nothing was like, you didn't see anything boiling. It just kind of erupted. So it felt like it was already like, if he goes here, we're going here kind of a mindset. Cause I've been there before, right? Like you walk into a meeting with somebody and you're already up in arms. You're already frustrated. You're already, upset, and you're going to be pushed to that point quicker than with your like, whoa, where's this coming from? I didn't catch any like, whoa, where's this coming from? I got like, how are you disrespecting us? And like, we're not going to put up with this. And like, can't you be more grateful? So I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been more grateful. I think he should have been more grateful. But, the truth is like, he's always been ungrateful. Like, to be truthfully honest with you, 3 years ago, CNN reported that Biden got mad at him, right? Like, Biden doesn't get mad at anybody. He's just everybody there. So, like, again, the report 3 years ago that he got mad at him. He's always been ungrateful. Like, what were you expecting? I think that's the first thing. Second thing that kind of comes to my mind is like, Chris Voss put a post on Facebook yesterday, and he's like, how did this negotiation go wrong? I'm like, it went wrong because you had it. Like you had the negotiation. That's where it went wrong. Because he never consented to coming and signing the minerals deal until he given, guarantees around security. He wants in NATO, period. End of story. Like he wants security that if he gives up this minerals to his country and the ceasefire begins, that Russia isn't just going to come back 4 years from now and attack him again. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like if I'm the president of a country, I don't want, be vulnerable 4 years from now. Trump's in his final term. I get it. I totally understand his perspective. I also understand the Trump administration's perspective of like, he's not grateful. But the truth is, he's never been grateful. And at the end of the day, you knew he was going to come in ungrateful. You knew he was going to come in with his hand out. You knew he was going to want securities. And you knew all that, which is what prompted you to get so frustrated so quickly, JD, right? Like that's vice president. Like that's what we saw. We saw that erupt. Now, the truth is, here's the truth, right? At the end of the day, this happens all the time.
Yeah. It just happens behind closed doors.
It happened with a client last week, right? It happens all the time. The difference is we don't set up cameras in our client sessions for people to be watching it at a tune of millions and billions of people around the world.
Which would be awesome.
Yeah. Possibly get a good TV deal out of it. But, I mean, Trump's not wrong. It makes for great TV. He wasn't wrong with that. Like every channel, including us at this point, are now covering this outburst that lasted all of 10 minutes max. And there's been millions of hours spoke about 10 minutes, right? So, yeah, I guess that's my perspective on what happened. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you isolate any moment and all of a sudden it changes the entire trajectory of it. And so I think it's just a good exercise in give me full context. And we talk about this in the meetings we have. If you take the full context, there's moments that are heated, but those heated moments are usually followed by, man, I love you. I care about you. I think highly of you in the business perspective. And so if you take anything within the 30 seconds that it'll fit on an Instagram clip, it looks awful. It looks terrible. And it's hard to take. But if you take in years now of conversations, years now of working through negotiations and trying to solve problems and try to boil it down to a 30-second snippet, it's just not accurate. I mean, I could take any We talked last week about NBA. I could take any NBA player and show you 30 seconds and you'd think they're Michael Jordan. You know, and I could take any business owner and take 30 seconds and think, man, that guy's a tyrant. And in reality, there's so much more to it. And I think that's my biggest problem with it. You know, a lot of the things that one side's going to say one thing, the other's going to say another. You know, one side's going to get mad that he didn't dress up to come to the White House. The other side's going to say, yeah, well, Elon wears a ball cap and a T-shirt every day. You know, one side's going to say he should have acted one way. The other side's going to say there's a reason he didn't. And I just think context gets lost in these moments. And I think if you take the whole context and all of a sudden everything changes. And I think it's just a good reminder in every facet of business is not to isolate things down to just one single moment. What's taking place around it? What's the dynamics of it? And then lastly, just, you know, to bring it to a point, which is where's the solutions in all of this? Like, we see a lot of problems, we see a lot of issues, but where are the solutions going to come up and how are we going to move forward with what the solutions are? And I think that's where the conversation should be headed is what next? Like, can we get everybody back in a room and rework through this? Maybe this time not with every single press in the entire United States in the room, so we could at least speak freely versus turning it into, from both sides, a bit of grandstanding. And I think that's probably a healthier place to go from here.
Yeah, I think you know, we talk about negotiating because in business we have to negotiate a lot, right? We're negotiating with our employees, we're negotiating with our spouses for more time to work, we're negotiating with our kids, we're negotiating with our you know, our partners, we're negotiating with customers, vendors, we're always negotiating, right? You got to be, if you're going to be good at business, you got to be a good negotiator to some degree. And that's what Trump was trying to do, was be, you know, a negotiator. He wrote the book, The Art of the Deal, and he's known for diplomatic negotiations. But I think where we went wrong here in this scenario was not being on the same page before we started negotiation. Like, you have to be willing to concede in some way, shape, or form. Like, both parties have to be willing to concede in order to create a good negotiating deal. And so, you know, and I think going into that meeting, they knew that he wanted securities, and I don't think they were willing to give the securities, so the meeting probably shouldn't have happened, right? Two parties cannot negotiate when both parties aren't willing to negotiate. And so I just think that's where it went wrong. I also think that I personally think it was a sign of strength. You know, whether it was the meeting was held properly or not, I still think from America's perspective, you know, it was a sign of strength to say, listen, we're not going to do this, and you're not going to come into the Oval Office, and you're not going to be disrespectful to the American people, and you are going to be grateful for what we've been able to do for your country. You know, we are America first, not Ukraine first, and I think that's where we are, and people got to be okay with that. And if you know, I mean, being a father and ex-military, you can see on my wall over here, my dad's in the military, 21 years, you know, we need to stand up for America. We need to put America first. And the truth is, at the end of the day, you know, I don't think I would have kept my cool when he was like, America's going to feel this. People don't want to talk enough about that moment. And he's like, you may be safe here now, but you're going to feel this soon. And you know, Trump was cool until that moment. Don't tell us how we're going to feel. Honestly, I saw my dad sitting there as a 21-year-old veteran going, don't threaten America. And you know, that's pride of an American. And that's where I felt myself being proud again. I want to be an American. Was like, hey, listen, you can say we haven't done this or we could do that. And you could be somewhat rude. You could not wear a shirt and tie. You could come in here and I'm still going to welcome you in with hospitality. But the moment you go in my house, you're going to feel this, or you're going to get this, or you come to my house and do that, you're going to get the same response. Don't tell me what I'm going to feel. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's weakness. That's strength. It's strength to be reserved, sit there, let this thing play out. But then you get the feeling of threat or, you know, an insinuated threat, then you better stand up for what you believe in. And here's the other thing too, for everybody that's out there that's going, you know, Ukraine first or whatever, like, here's what I'll say to you. Like, I have a 23-year-old son. If we give that man and that country access to NATO, my son's going to be fighting their war. I don't want my son fighting their war. I want peace within all this realm, right? My dad spent 4 years in Vietnam, and he didn't want to spend 1 minute over there fighting a war. Most boys that are going to war don't want to be there. They're doing it out of respect and love and pride for their country. The same thing that burned in Trump's chest when he says, you're going to feel this.
Yeah.
And I think that was a great moment of leadership to stand up and go, no, you're not going to dictate to us how we're going to.
Yeah, it was a wild interchange. I think it's just the business applications of it are just so rich. I mean, there's so many things you can just take from it, which is when it's time to stand up and like make a stand, leaders have to stand up and make a stand on both sides of it. You have to stand up and say, this is how this is going to go. The moment somebody wants to threaten the business, threaten the culture, threaten how we're going to do what we do, there's a big disconnect there. You feel it all the time when we work with businesses. You sit with them, and as soon as somebody says, well, I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to go take your business, or I'm going to go do something else, you see the real leaders bow up a little bit and say, hold on a second here. I'm gracious. I'm kind. I mean, most of the clients we work with are just very gracious, kind business people, but you cross those lines and you see the CEO in them rise up and say, hold on a second here. You don't violate the core values, and the core values say, you don't come questioning the security of our business, our country, whatever the case might be. So I think there's so many lessons to be taken from it. To Gary's point, like the ability to go into a room and negotiate through problems, go through and position things properly to benefit you and your business are just, they're very valuable. And I think those are the takeaways from a business perspective where we shouldn't ignore them for sure. Good topic.
It seems like a lot of companies either struggle with firing somebody or they're hesitant to bring people on because they don't want to have difficult conversations. It was jokingly mentioned last episode, like, hey, bring Gary in to fire people. So how does somebody navigate those conversations, have tough conversations, lead the company, but in a practical sense? Here's an employee we need to like have a conversation with, potentially even let them go. Or, hey, our company could grow, but we don't really want to have that type of conflict. How do we navigate that?
I mean, I think there's a really good tool we've put in place. I mean, it's something we put in Rise, which is succession planning, because it allows us to map out where the company is going and what the needs of the staffing are going to be, so that nobody feels that blindsided. Why are we adding this role? Why are we putting managers in place? Why did somebody just get hired over me? And when we map that stuff out, at least there's a conversation on the front end to say, here's where we're going. And if you fit that role, amazing. You can go with us, but the business is going here. I mean, we get this all the time where it's companies that want to scale large. They want to build big companies. And the people they have right now, it's the what got you here won't get you there. Doesn't mean we got to go firing everybody, but these people do not have the appetite or the desire to go to that next level. They don't want to be a part of a $100 million business. They want to be a part of a $5 million business. And just getting ahead of it, and at least the visionary saying, here's where we're going, here's the path we're casting, and innovating the business to say this is where we're going, at least it makes that conversation palatable. Another thing, just from the actual tactical of firing people, I mean, you just tell them this isn't working, we're moving forward. I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, they do this where they just go in, they tell the guy, hey, look, you just got traded. Here's the person that's going to help you off board. This is not the time to prove your point. Your leaders are strong. And if you've got to rip into somebody because you fired them, it's just kind of a lack of self-control. You should be able to just look at them and say, hey, this isn't going to work. We're moving forward. That is what it is. We appreciate all you've done, but we're moving on from here. I find, I've had to fire a few people in my life, and I wish I could go back and be much more that way about it. And going forward, that's how I've been more so. It's just, hey, isn't working. We're moving forward. Sorry about that. We'll help you any way we can, but we're going to move forward.
Yeah, I think for me, when you talk about conflict in a business, there are two types of conflict. There's healthy conflict and there's unhealthy conflict. And so, we got to first as leaders determine when it's becoming unhealthy and shut it down. Healthy conflict should be mining for in a company. We should be looking for healthy conflict. Healthy conflict only makes everybody better and stronger. And what I mean by healthy is when two people are willing to bring an argument or bring their perspectives, and both people are willing to listen to the perspective. But usually healthy conflict is when people are collaborating in a solution and they just don't see eye to eye. And it's okay. It's okay not to see eye to eye. Dictatorship would determine like you can't share your opinion, and my opinion is the only way. And so, like in healthy conflict, you got to be willing to listen and give healthy and constructive feedback and criticism of everything that's being talked about. Unhealthy conflict is when someone is not willing to listen. They're not willing to hear somebody else's opinion. They want to dictate the solution to them. Or it's not in the best interest of the business. You know, I see it a lot of times in businesses where somebody engages in unhealthy conflict and they're pushing an agenda, and we call it politicking. There's a real reason why we call it politicking, because it's somewhat unhealthy, right? Like, don't politic to get your way. We saw it on main stage the last week was a politicking session, an 8-minute politicking session. People trying to get their way in the business and in the country. But when people are politicking to get their way, it's not acting in the best interest of the company, and therefore it's unhealthy. And somebody's got to be willing to call that out. There's a really good book called Crucial Conversations. And I always highly recommend Crucial Conversations to people that are struggling with that area of conflict, and how to understand what healthy conflict is and what unhealthy conflict is, and when to call out unhealthy conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
When to say, we've had enough. We're done. And going back to the subject line of this whole statement, like, I felt like if Trump would have called it out a little earlier, when he saw it was becoming unhealthy, just say, hey, listen, we're not here to have an unhealthy conversation. We can talk more about this, but we're not going to continue this conversation on the main stage in front of the whole world. So let's just kind of calm this thing down, guys. Media, thanks for coming today. We're going to continue our conversation behind closed doors. Thank you for your time. And the most that would have come out of that would have been like, wow, that seemed a little heated. That seemed like they were, Trump had to step in and step up. And I think that's where we kind of missed the mark in this scenario. And what happened was we probably should have identified when it was going from healthy to unhealthy and shut it down. That's what great leadership does, is they shut it down when it's unhealthy. I was in the team not too long ago, and this two people were not getting along, and they were partners. And one looked at the other one, and he's like, I'm out. There was no fight. There was no belittling the other party. This is unhealthy. I'm out. Like, it's not like I'm done taking my ball and go home. It's just like, no, we're not going to continue to have this conversation. I'm out of the conversation. I'm done. And that is a very appropriate way to handle unhealthy conflict.
Yeah, the thing you don't want is apathy. The worst is when you're in those meetings and everybody's apathetic, and it's just kind of like nobody really wants to push on anything. I mean, if you were a fly on the wall in like our quarterly meetings at Sharper, they get aggressive. Like they get very, very loud and very boisterous. It's because nobody's apathetic about what we're doing. There's a heavy level of passion, and when you step into those things, now when it starts turning personal, when it starts turning to name calling, when it turns into only belittling from something that somebody did years and years and years ago, then all of a sudden it's like we've crossed some lines here that are not constructive to the business. And if the true purpose of the conflict is to make something better, then why do we not stay on topic? And it's because the passions get going, and that's understandable. But it's just bringing it back to that healthy place. The book Gary gave is phenomenal. There's like 4 different books that go in that same vein of just making sure that in those crucial moments, in Crucial Conversations, it talks about the fact when you're angry, when you're mad, literally your brain does not work as well. You're literally, they put in the book is you're literally at your dumbest when you're mad. It's the reason why if you've ever gotten in an argument with your wife, you'll get in these arguments and you'll say something, you're like, I sound like an idiot right now. I sound like a complete moron. And that's what happens a lot of times in those situations is there needs to be somebody there. A lot of times it works out well to have us there as a consultant, because we can look and say, hey, pause. I'm not in this with you. So let's take a quick 5 minutes. Let everybody refresh. Let everybody reset. Everybody get something to eat, get something to drink. Like, just take a second, take a beat, and then we can come back and get on this topic again. But those heated moments, man, they can go sideways fast on you.
Years ago, I started putting up those Ring cameras, outside of the house. And I was thinking, I'm going to put something in the house, right? Like, this is years ago. And like one night, there was an argument. And I won't tell you who was in the argument. There was an argument, right? And I decided to watch the camera because I'm like, I'm right. I'm not wrong. Like, that person's wrong. I'm gonna prove they're wrong. Like, they said this. I went back and was watching it and listened to it. I'm like, oh, man, They didn't say what I thought they said. And like, man, look at me. I look like I'm like a monster. I look mad. What's wrong with me? I'd be scared to death of myself. Like,
Yeah.
well, here I'm thinking in my own mind that I was cool, calm, and collective, but my
Yeah.
body wasn't cool, calm, and collective. My tone wasn't cool, calm, and collective. Even though I wasn't screaming, I still very angry and frustrated. And boy, I was like,
so either Gary had to tone it down or take the cameras out.
yeah, so you can't, start down on,
Cameras
right?
are
Like, no
gone.
one's no, that's still there. I mean,
I'm
it's
just kidding.
it's
Watch that
interesting.
footage. We should watch that footage and commentate on it, Gary. I think that would be a phenomenal episode. Is we just you and whoever, let's say her name rhymes with Musin, all right? Like it rhymes with Musin, and we stick the footage up here.
I think it was Jacob, right?
That seems more on brand. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of fights in my house, but the fights in my house are usually when two maverick type people go together.
Sure.
And it was when he was a little older, he was like 17, 18 years old, still living at home. And he's 6 foot now, so it was like,
he's looking down on you. He's looking down on you, and you didn't like it.
I remember saying, I remember getting so angry because I was like, I thought he said something that he didn't say when I rewatched it. And he's like, I didn't say that. I'm like, boy, don't create a tone with me like that. You did say that. Apologize. He's like, I didn't say that. I'm not going to apologize for something I didn't say. And I remember thinking to myself, like, you're going to get it, And I'm like, I remember making this statement, if you feel froggy, like, let's go.
That would have been great footage of the two. Then you'd have fight footage. Footage. That would have been good too. Awesome.
Let's do this back on course. The Rise Marriage Framework will be coming out in 6 months.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
What...
AI in business. This is I said to a couple people lately just how much that has incorporated into daily life. It just is just crazy. And I don't obviously various fields use it more than but just even in outside of work, just the usage of ChatGPT and other AI tools. First of all, what tools do you see businesses using right now that you're coaching in, get there, what tools are they using?
I mean, number one, chat, right? ChatGPT is probably the number one. It's kind of going to kick it off for a lot of people. AI's been around a couple of years, even, for a while now, but, it's really kind of took hold. I'd say like really started hearing about it more and more in business around January of last year, so like people were talking about how to use it. There's people are using it for process, procedures, and policies. I've seen Notebook LM Google right now. Like it's free where you can create a podcast like we're doing right here, Dylan. You could take and upload a document or, your standard operating procedure guide into Notebook LM. It's a really creative way of taking and like actually listening to two people train you on a process, and they're training you through through a podcast just like this. And they talk about the importance of the process, and they talk about the importance of the deadline and how to go about helping the customer. And it's fun because they'll actually take it and they'll add to it, and they'll say like, well, what happens when the customer doesn't get this? Well, they leave some sense of frustration, and it gives it from a conversational piece and training people. And so I'm seeing a lot of employees right now utilize it, seeing a lot of students utilize it in schools. Like they're putting their notes and stuff in, or their recordings from their classes in, and like creating a 2-person podcast, 3-person podcast with it. And that's a really cool feature right now. Some other ones I'm seeing is captions. Captions have come out with marketing, really, really great AI software. But like you can create different scenarios. On a personal level, Dylan, I have a couple AIs I actually really like. I write a lot of poems, and this is something unique that I've done. There's a music AI, and I've taken my poems and I put them in music AI, and it writes songs. I can choose the genre. I can choose the voice.
Why don't you sing one of them for us, Gary? Why don't you sing one for us real quick?
Wait,
let's hear a little bit of it. You could be a rap. I could like to hear you rap a little bit. Lay me Dylan.
I was on a camping.
The OG.
I was on a camping trip one time, and like I was singing with these two brothers, and the one criticized me like crazy, and I've like never sung again.
Just
It's like this
discard you.
terrible PTSD from it, you
Hey,
know?
Gary, don't leave mad. Just leave.
You may or may not know this. I think you were about 5 years old at the time, and your brothers criticized and ruined my singing career next to a
Yeah.
camp one night.
Yeah, I've been tone deaf since that day because I just could never get the tone back in my voice, my ears.
But
That's fun.
I definitely like the music AI. It's really cool. I think there's there's other apps.
What's the
out
name of
there as
that?
well, music AI.
Is that just okay?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, Gartner's came out with a study on this that they said it's already down 10. Search is down 10%. People are already using the AIs to do the search versus Google. They believe by the end of the year it'll be 25%. By the end of 2 years it'll be 50%. So number one, it's going to take over search. The way people are using it for note taking, we use Plod. So if a client would like us to, sometimes we'll record parts of sessions and it'll just AI generate the notes off of a little device. I should be getting a commission for them for as many of those as I've sold. So I mean, like those are incredible. A lot of the vendor partners that work with our clients are starting to integrate AIs into their stuff. People like InvestorLift is doing some pretty cool stuff with their AI. I heard somebody say this a while back, and this was kind of a triggering way to think about it, which is the most capable person today versus the least capable person today. In 5 years, the least capable person today will be more capable than the most capable person is right now. In other words, the way these tools are going to integrate into your life, it will be so much more than anything we've ever imagined. The search thing, and this is just an insight, you need to go to ChatGPT right now, pause the episode, go to ChatGPT and ask it for whatever your service is. So a lot of people, our clients, work in real estate. If I needed to sell a house in my town today, who should I call? And see what happens. Because it's going to show up with a bunch of names and it doesn't necessarily follow the same trends as your Google search. And so if you're not thinking about that part of it, all of a sudden you're going to wake up in a year from now and half the world's using that for search and you're way behind the 8 ball. So that kind of stuff is taking over. Gary had on his Meta glasses. I have a pair of those before we started here. That's the wearables and that kind of stuff are going to be taking over. I just saw yesterday, they're doing it for hearing aids now. They're just glasses with little clips in the back. You don't wear hearing aids anymore and it's all AI. I mean, Gary mentioned like the video stuff they're doing is unbelievable. Design is still really bad. Somebody did a lot of design work. The design still looks really chintzy. But I tell all of our clients right now, if you're not getting your team to use AI on a daily basis, you're going to either have to replace your team a year or two from now, or you're going to be out of business because the ability for this stuff to multiply the efficiency of an employee is so exponential. It literally somebody's going to run past you. They're not going to walk past you in competition for business. They're literally going to run past you like you're sitting still if you don't start using these tools. I mean, the stuff we used to have to get 4 and 5 video editors for. I mean, we throw it in a system now and we're done. It's just, it's not even a competition anymore.
So how does somebody implement these things practically? Like, we're in a lot of real estate companies. What are ways to, you got to train the employees in AI. You got to like say, you're going to use these tools whether you like it or not. Like what's the practical way to say, okay, here's a new set of tools we have to use in the business or else we're going to fall behind, and how to get that actually put in?
Funny thing is a lot of AI doesn't have to be trained on it. It just needs to be put in place, right? Like it can run behind the scenes. We have there's an AI software that a lot of our teams will use in order to audit their sales calls, right? And that's an AI that'll like literally tell their boss or whoever that they're in compliance or they're not in compliance. It'll take track of like all the things they're saying. It'll hear the customer talking, and it'll actually give you a script in live moment of telling you like this is something that you should say as a rebuttal or how to overcome their objections. Like you can train it. But here's the thing, like, I don't think it's like something we have to get our employees trained on. I do think you're going to have a technology department in the future, like we have an HR and things like that, where you're going to need somebody full time that's focused on implementing and developing AI in your company. And here's a bigger reason why I think you're going to left behind if you're not using AI. I always tell people, I don't think it's going to replace jobs. It'll replace the people that aren't using AI, right? I think AI will actually create jobs. I think you'll need more AI in your business, and so you'll actually create jobs. Now, people that were doing tasks before, they'll just get reused in other areas that are in supportive of AI. Just like
It's going to
all
create
technology.
better jobs. It's going
It
to create
is.
better jobs. Yeah.
Create better jobs. Yeah. So like, I think that's where we'll see things, but AI in general, I mean, think about like what Doge is doing with AI right now and finding waste in the government. People are going to start doing that in their own companies. I think the other thing that we're going to find with AI is why we wrote Rise. I mean, Rise is written with a lot of prompts in it, the heart, head, and speech prompts. It helps you build your job descriptions, right? Like, me and Brandon have a goal of turning Rise into like an AI where you can like answer the questions and it helps you build out your business operating system for you. That's where we're going with this. The other thing I think with what we've done in Rise is really, really genius with the systems is the 9-box, right? So when we do a 9-box assessment of somebody's process, we can see very quickly, does this process bring value and is it essential? And things that bring value that are not essential or things that are essential but don't bring value, we need to be looking for AI solutions to automate these things and get them done, because that's going to drive our costs down in our companies. And when our costs go down, we can now lower the price to our customers and be more affordable and cheaper to people. And the more affordable and cheaper we are, the more competitive we're going to be, right? And so when companies aren't like getting more productive with AI, their costs are going to stay high. They're not going to be able to drop their price. And in return, they're going to end up losing to their competition. And we're going to be in a bad place if we're not using it in the next 3 to 5.
Yeah, it's common. I mean, Starbucks just, I think it's today or tomorrow, is laying off like 1,100 of their corporate staff. You see these cutting, right? So, I mean, the theme of the word this year that I kept hearing over and over again was, we're right-sizing our business. We're right-sizing our business. And they're right-sizing it based on the efficiencies that they're finding. Practicality, I mean, if you're doing any kind of sales type of stuff, the worst thing to do in sales was always role-playing. Trying to get another person to pretend like the customer. The AI will role play with you now. You don't need somebody else to do it. You can literally just turn it on and have a conversation and tell it, I want you to act like a 55-year-old woman who has a distressed property or whatever the case might be, and just role play it out from there. I think you do have to give your team some prompts. I think you do have to give them some things. My favorite thing right now, I just saw a team do the other day, is they took their team and said, hey, look, we're going to take an afternoon and we're going to call it, I think they call them a Hack Fest. And literally it's whoever comes up with the best thing that we can implement into our business from AI in the next 4 hours, we're going to give you a $1,000 bonus. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And they just cut the team loose and said, look, here's the chats. I've got a client recently who's building, they're giving everybody on their team agents and giving them a set of prompts to use with it and building them their own custom agent. If you're not thinking about how you're going to do that, again, it doesn't have to be perfect today. But this is kind of like years ago when the first time you handed your team like cell phones and you're like, figure out ways to not have to come back to the office. Figure out ways to not have to do something that we were doing before. I mean, I'm using v0.dev right now to build all of my spreadsheets, all of my tools, all of my things. And quite frankly, they're pretty bad right now. They're not great, but I'm figuring out how to develop websites and code websites without having to code websites. The practice is not so I can build these tools. I'm going to use them because I think they're fun. The practice is if you're not messing around with them and playing with them. We all know this. Like you learn things by playing with them. And I would just tell your team, look, we are going to take 2 hours every week and just go play with AI tools. Go figure out what we can do better as a company by using these integrations, because that way when you come with the thing that is fully baked, and it's like, here's the fully cooked product that we are going to actually use in our business, you're not catching everybody by surprise, and nobody's looking in, and there's no resistance to the change. We all know this was happening. We all know we're going this direction. This integration is going to take place. If you don't want to get on board with it, then it's not a matter of you're going to lose your job. It's a matter of you're not going to be able to keep up. The pace is going to move too fast. And so I think you're going to have to figure this stuff out.
Just to clarify, Hackfest has nothing to do with the college you went to. Is that right?
No.
Okay.
It's just, it's like hackers, computer hackers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
computer
Okay.
hackers.
All right. Maybe we should offer that as a name for like college days or something. Okay. Moving on. The Luka trade. Probably the biggest just blind side, I think, at every aspect. I think there are some people pretending like they didn't know, that maybe had some information maybe, but just a total blind side to, it seems like everybody involved.
Yeah.
The
I
players.
went on a diet as soon as I heard it was happening because if you're gonna get fired for carrying an extra few pounds, I figure I probably just get on a diet right away.
Was that
Yeah.
the reason?
Yeah, that's
Put
what
him
they
on
said.
Sunday.
Oh my
That
goodness.
they don't want to give him a supermax because he was carrying some extra weight, and they were worried about the weight and injury. Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, I read so a lot of people are talking about the trade and like how like the GM, they want the GM fired and all that, but I mean, truth is at the end of the day, they didn't feel he was a good culture fit. They felt like he didn't fit their culture, and like and now here's the problem with that is now the like maybe they have the wrong culture, maybe their culture was wrong and they need to like adjust to him because. Like I watched him last night play against with the Lakers, and like he had like 20 points, 10 rebounds, three threes, all in the first period, first half of the game. Like he's a phenomenal player. Like he's so like I don't know. I mean, I can see where they feel like his weight training and his healthiness could be a factor long term, but I mean, right now, anything could go wrong. The truth is, right? Like, what are you paying for? Are you paying for right now, or are you paying for 5 years from now? So,
yeah. But we talk about this, Gary. This is. I think it's in one of the books talking about you have these high performers who just don't fit the culture or don't fit the core values of something, and at some point you have to look at it and say it's probably not. It's not worth the upside based on what you're creating inside the business. But I didn't think about it from that angle. That's a good angle, which is, if this is your highest performer, maybe there's something wrong with your culture. And the thing to look at is the Mavericks just sold a majority of the team. Mark Cuban was known as a player's owner for years and years. He sells the team, and then all of a sudden you go make this just blockbuster, what seems like a really bad trade. It would make me concerned about the culture. What you have to worry about is this, and I think it's the same in business. You have to worry about getting a bad reputation that you don't take care of star players, right? The Bulls took this on, where when they broke up everything in the dynasty there, it kind of got around the league that you don't want to go to Chicago. They don't take care of their people. The Mavericks are going to fall in that same thing. Who was it that the Patriots just took some flack because the NFLPA does a survey every year and they ask the players like, what's the best franchise? And it's all anonymous. And they all put on there that their plane is trash, like there's no Wi-Fi on the plane and it's really bad. And stuff like that seemingly seems very innocuous, like, oh, it's just kind of funny. But people watch that stuff. People wanted to go to the Mavericks 5-6 years ago because Mark Cuban was spending a fortune on their health, their well-being, their diets, their exercises, buying them the best airplanes, the best everything. And if you it's really easy to pick up a reputation like that. And I think it's the same in business, where if you pick up a reputation that you don't take care of your people, not to pat our own backs, but we put up a job posting last week, Gary, for moderators. Yeah. And the inbox was flooded because people want to come be a part of what we've got going on. Like Sharper is a place to be right now. It's something to be a part of. It can very quickly change that reputation though. And if we don't stay on top of it, I think it's a good reminder. You see something like that, like, hey, this is the guy's numbers are insane. They're Jordan-esque numbers. And if you can't keep a guy like that around, some of it could be his fault for sure. He needs to watch his stuff. But at the end of the day, like, you've created an environment where he felt comfortable not taking care of himself or not playing up to his potential. That's kind of on you as well.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, the biggest reason was they didn't, because of his health, or misnomers there, they didn't want to offer him. I think it was $345 million contract at the end of the year, which is what he would have been, a max superstar contract would have been offered to him. But the Lakers, going back to culture, Lakers have always had great talent. People want to play there. People want to be a part of that roster. Why? Well, there's history there, but I think it's also because what you said. They're known for people winning. They're known for, having the best. They're known for taking care of the big players. I think Boston Celtics are known for that. You get to Boston. Why are they always in the hunt? Because they take care of their players. You've got multiple teams. I don't know that the Bulls, although they're my favorite team, I don't know if the Bulls are really known for that. At the end of the day, like, Michael Jordan had to go out and make money and made more money with Nike than he did playing basketball. So, like, I think that's probably why Michael Jordan stayed in Chicago, was because he have to go chase some money. Not everybody gets a record signing contract with a shoe dealer like he did back then. And so, like, he just needed a place to play at that point. And I think
Yeah.
the Bulls gave him the best chance of winning.
Yeah, I mean it's the Lakers have a brand. The Yankees have a brand. I mean they have this shield that people want to wear the pinstripes. People want to wear the yellow and the purple. You know, Michael Jordan was the brand. The Bulls were nothing, and he literally just made them something. And I think that's the difference, which is if you want to accidentally fall into good talent, then don't worry about it. You know, accidentally you'll get somebody every now and then. But if it's like you want a culture of winning, a culture of like, this is who we are. I say this to clients all the time. You have two customers, right? You have the person you're selling to, you have your internal team. And a lot of times when we talk about branding, I'm not even worried about the customer. I could care less. That's secondary. What I'm worried about is if we make these custom tees, we make these t-shirts, we make this apparel, we make these stickers, we do all these different things, are people going to want to associate with the brand? And I mean, one of the coolest things we see all the time is when we see people out there with, you know, who aren't even part of our company, who don't even work with us anymore, wearing sharper sweatshirts. And it's like that says a lot about who you are. And I think that's the idea that the Lakers have that. People can come there and get up under the banner of the LA Lakers and feel cool about it. You know, and I think that's what the Mavericks are missing on. They had the ability to do it. I think they were on the right path. But things like this, man, they chip away at that value. And when you think about how much those teams are worth, that logo is a huge part of that worth. There's only so many of them that have NBA logos. And if you don't take care of it, you know, it can go sideways real fast.
For
Yeah,
more
it's
about
funny. Brandon sent me a picture one time. It was a competitor, and they had they were holding a cement, and like the room had somebody in it with a sharper sweater on. And I thought that was pretty funny. It was like, you know, she's still wearing our sweater, you know, even though she's in the room. So it's pretty interesting. The other thing, you know, I wanted to add to this is that, you know, I always tell teams you have the teams you deserve, right? Leaders have the teams they deserve. And
100%.
you know, the truth is at the end of the day, he left for a reason. And it wasn't just about money. It was about the brand where they were playing, who he got to play with, and LeBron James. You know, he's happy. He's very happy. You know, the only people hurting right now is Maverick fans. That's who's
Yeah.
hurting. It was the fans who just lost one of the best players in the league because you had a team and a culture that couldn't keep great talent.
Yeah, that's right.
personally, in not necessarily business related or professional, but like, how does this type of thing happening in the sports world specifically affect your like loyalty to the team? 'Cause I feel like personally, you take like the Cubs, and they won the World Series, and I get it. There's the business side, there's the, contracts, all that stuff. But then you trade these players away, and it's kind of like that's who people enjoy watching are the players. They don't know the owners. They're not loyal to the owners. They're loyal to the institution and the players, and then you just go and like undercut them. Inversely, the players do it as well, right? Is it Soto, that went to the Mets, kind of dropped the Yankees, what is like, just like personally for you, do you feel like you have loyalty to a team regardless of who's playing? Or is it like, man, it really kind of is a punch in the gut when these things happen?
I think it's a generational thing. I mean, kids today are much more like, I think Steph Curry is kind of the if you want to use him as the fulcrum point. There are people who are huge Steph Curry fans. I mean, every kid was wearing a Golden State Warriors jersey there. They didn't care about the Golden State Warriors. They're big Steph Curry fans. I think that has to do with broadcasting and distribution. Used to be that, you only got to watch the Bulls on WGN and that's it. Now it's like NBA League Pass. You can watch any team, anytime, anywhere. I still think it's important. I think it damages your brand, your company. I don't think it's the same as it used to be. I mean, I remember growing up as a Cubs fan, the Cubs signed Jim Edmonds, who was with the Cardinals.
Yep.
And you had people who literally stopped being Cubs fans because they went and got Jim Edmonds because they hated him so much. You don't see that really. I mean, the converse would be like 2016, Dexter Fowler was like the hero for the Cubs. They traded him to the Cardinals. People still love Dexter Fowler. So I don't think it's as much as it used to be, but it's still a thing. I mean, there's definitely loyalties there, but I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. I mean, I don't hate Zach LaVine because he got traded over to the Kings. It's kind of like, okay, he'll be fun to watch over there too.
Yeah. I think anymore sports, people follow players, they don't follow teams anymore.
Mhm.
I think the loyalty of teams is kind of gone because honestly, the owners have made it about money and they've gotten rid of the loyalty. They've broken a franchise. I think the cap salary cap has forced that to some degree. You can't be loyal. You have to like start unloading people. I was texting Jacob yesterday and I'm like, hey, Samuel just left the 49ers. He's going to the Commanders. And I'm like, thank you for your wide receiver because he's a big 49ers fan. I'm a big Commanders fan. I'm like, thanks for your wide receiver. He's like, I'll still enjoy watching him play I'm watching him play over there, right?
Yeah.
Very similar. Brandon said. So people aren't really loyal to teams, right? They're loyal to the players that are on the team. If Michael Jordan would have left and went play for the Lakers, I would have bought a Lakers jersey.
No. See, you lost me there. But okay, let's go here, Gary, because I mean, I know you're a big college football fan. You're a big
Right.
West Virginia fan. I think it's different in college football. I think it's a different sport. So
You're right. 1,000 times different. People are loyal in college. And if you got a player that leaves college and goes plays for a competitor, he isn't getting the same welcome. Like
Right.
he's getting rewarded with like a lot of hate, to be honest with you. Probably a little unhealthy at the level in college of like, you don't leave this college and go play for this college. I remember, speaking of which, when Rodriguez was in the game against Pittsburgh, and if West Virginia won the football game, they go play the national championship, right? And Rodriguez announces before the game that he is going to go coach Michigan.
yeah,
Michigan
Rich Rod.
here. And the whole team fell apart. Like Steve Slayton and Pat White were like, what the heck? Like they know playing a good game. They lost to an unranked Pittsburgh team in their own backyard. Why? Because their culture got disrupted by their coach being unloyal to their organization and what everybody in West Virginia. And it's even worse in West Virginia, right? Because nobody ever leaves West Virginia once you're in West Virginia. Even the people, the dogs stay in West Virginia. They don't leave. Like everybody stays in West Virginia.
That's what, Gary, I was going to talk trash about West Virginia, but I didn't want all the West Virginia people coming out at me. But then I remembered they don't have internet there. They don't know what's going on. So,
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry to all our West Virginia listeners. I am kidding. That is a joke. I love the state of West Virginia. Please don't come at me. Don't at me on Facebook. All right. Okay.
yeah. See, what's funny is they'll laugh at my jokes about West Virginia. They'll hate on you because you're not
That's
from
right.
there.
It's like somebody criticizing your family. Like you're gonna come out with the guns, but Gary's got video of him ripping into his kid. So yes,
They're all family in
And I
West
know
Virginia,
every now
so
and then just get himself fired up.
Hey, it's why I left West Virginia. I have so much family there. I didn't know if I was going to marry somebody
exactly.
else related to.
Oh,
exactly.
See, come at him. Don't come at me.
So to put a bow on it, if you want the super max, don't go get the super size. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, let's move on. We're running out of time here. This one probably gonna take a lot of time. Probably something we'll revisit in the future again. But the co-CEO model, I was kind of referring to a Harvard Business Review here. Something we have.
Oh, they're back again. Gary trashed them last week, so let's see
Yeah.
what he's got for him this week.
He said it'd be okay.
I mean, again, I'm starting to really wonder, like, does it have the same level of credibility as it once did? Because, like, these studies are, like, brainless. I mean, like, there's very little effort put into these studies. I mean, in the review, it talks about 100 companies that they proved. And the whole like, structure of the Harvard Business Review in this article is, like, maybe we've proven the model of co-CEO.
Right.
And I told Dylan, I'm like, they didn't prove anything. They just proved it doesn't fail all the time, right? Like that's
Right.
all they with
100 companies. We were in 100 companies last week. What do you mean
I know.
You surveyed 100 companies. Which 100?
And so the co-CEO model, like, I mean, they even start off their article with saying, like, here are all the companies, big companies that failed at this, right? But we found 100 companies that we won't tell you any of their names because they're all like probably small businesses.
Pre-profit, of course.
Yeah, pre-profit.
Yeah.
And, that did succeed at this. And I'm like, I told Dylan, they didn't prove anything worked. They just proved it didn't fail every time. That's all they proved. And that's a lot. I mean, the truth is at the end of the day, like we can't always hold on to like things and say they work. Just because they don't fail doesn't mean they work. And this doesn't work. It doesn't work. You can't have two people that you're trying to listen to and lead. The book, Story Brand, what's his name? Donald Miller. He says, when you confuse, you lose, right? Like, and when you are having a co-CEO model, there's a lot of confusion that starts to happen. Nobody feels like they know who's in charge. Now, where could it be beneficial? I think we got to give some credence to the mindset behind the co-CEO. And I think when you have a culture of leaders that nobody feels like they're at the top, that works, right? Like, I think it works. But when you start giving everybody in the organization a CEO title, that's ego. I like Disney. Disney's like, everybody's a cast member. Like, nobody has all these crazy titles, right? And so like, I don't know that I need a title. I don't know that Brandon needs a title. I don't think, Susan or Austin or Andy or you or Dylan need a title. Like, here's the thing. We're all leaders. We're all going to work together and lead this company. And I think that's the mindset behind the co-CEO model is just like, it's not about one person. It's about like multiple people working within their focus, working within their area of expertise. Because when you read the article, it goes on to talk about like how that this person's going to focus on business systems and operations, while this person focuses on mail or marketing and sales. And that's great. Like, and that's what we need. We need a level of focus on every area, but we still need somebody at the end of the day who goes, this is where we're going. This is the direction. This is the vision. This is what we want to accomplish. Somebody's still got to have that passion and that obsession with getting us there. And at the end of the day, you still have to have a captain behind the wheel. I mean, of the ships. Like, I think that's what has to be in place is like the mindset behind this thing works, but not the titles. Like, you can't have two CEOs.
Well, and I think that's why, I mean, when we did Rise, we talk about an org chart, but we move through it pretty quick and we get to process ownership because all that matters is who owns the processes. I mean, we build it out and it's like, it doesn't even say titles. It's who's going to innovate the business, who's going to lead the processes, who's going to be accountable for the performances, who's going to do the processes. And I think the part that people get wrong on this all the time, which is there's two sides. And I feel like I say this like 1,000 times a day. There is who is accountable for it, who's a resource to it, right? We're all, I mean, you have to look and say somebody is accountable. The Bible says it this way. It's like no man can serve two masters. He'll hate the one and he'll resist the other, or he'll cling to the one and he'll flee to the other. Like, you have to have this one who is going to be accountable for this getting done. But at the end of the day, if it fails, we all fail. If it doesn't work, it fails on all of us. And I think when you create these co-CEO models, all you end up with is finger pointing. Well, it wasn't my fault, it was his fault. And it wasn't this, and it wasn't this. And to me, it ties a little bit to this desire we have in the business world today for a bit of weak leadership. And I don't want to have to own it. And when we actually put it on somebody, what ends up happening is we all rally. If something fails at Sharper, the first person to stand up and say it's my fault is going to be Gary. And we're all going to come around and say, Gary, it's not your fault. We let you down. That's how that works. Now, if it's co-CEO, then it would be Gary blaming this guy and that guy blaming Gary and, him going to his group of people and him going to his group of people. And it first and foremost, if you're running anywhere from a small to mid-sized business, don't worry about it. This shouldn't even be a conversation. There's somebody who's in charge. If you have a large company and you tell me you want to split this thing up by departments, sure. But back to the point, are we doing titles, or are we actually solving problems and completing processes and getting performances out of things? If that's what we're actually here to do, then right. Who absolutely cares what the titles are?
Then Harvard needs to do more studies that are more practical to today's entrepreneur. I mean, the
Gary,
majority.
Give me your cell phone. Give me your cell phone real quick, Gary. Why don't you just give your cell phone here on the air? And
I think at the end of the day, you have to do studies out that are going to apply to majority of people in the world. Like, most businesses are small business owners, and they don't have it. They're not even the CEO. They're like, well, I'm the CEO of my business. No, you're not. You're not a CEO. A CEO is of a big organization. Here's what you are. You're the person who founded the business, right? At the end of the day, you're the leader of the organization. And here's another thing. I mean, too many entrepreneurs think and feel like they need the CEO, COO model. And the truth is, most companies can't afford a CEO and a COO.
That's right.
Well, you know what they need? They need a leader. That's what they need. You know what else they need? They need a manager. You know what else they need? They need employees. They need those three people, right? And sometimes you're the leader, you're the manager, you're the employee. So, like, the idea that, like, anybody probably listening to this podcast should even think that they're a CEO and they have a COO or they need another CEO, it's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your energy. It's a waste of your money to even read this article at this point. So focus on getting your work done, doing your job, showing up every day, leading your people, making money. And when you get to the point of earning the right and you run a Fortune 100 or bigger company, now you can start calling yourself a CEO. But at the end of the day, the CEO title is way overplayed, way overused. And I think at the end of the day, we're here to lead people, manage people, and to get the work done. And that's all we need to focus on.
Here,
And if
here.
you're a small business owner and you think you need another CEO, then maybe you need to sit in the owner's box, right? You know, at the end of the day, I think you're right though, Brandon. I think a lot of people just don't want to have, don't want to own it. They don't want to be responsible. And so they're like, well, what if I bring somebody else in and like put all the effort on them? Then I'll keep my title, they keep their title. And,
Well, and they're both innovative people. Usually it ends up it's two very innovative people. They both have great ideas. They're both very, very intuitive about leading the business. Amazing. But let's just be very clear with where the battle lines are drawn. Like, you're going to go focus over here and I'm going to focus over there and create clarity around it, because otherwise we just end up with a lot of good ideas that never get implemented. And you're top heavy when in a small business, the reality is we probably need to be more bottom heavy. We need people who can actually turn the wheel. Not innovation is not hard when you're a startup. Innovation is the easiest part. You have a million ideas. The problem is the execution. And I think that's what falls into the trap here is, okay, well, we've got all these innovative people, which is great. I don't mind that. But at some point, somebody's got to get down, go get on the plane, go to the consult. Somebody's got to get down, go out and buy the house. Somebody's got to get down, go sell the products. And I think that's where this misses a little bit.
To wrap it up, I think it would be a miss to. I think there's probably not a podcast out there that has two people on here who are in businesses as regularly as you guys are. So, like, this isn't like a hot topic or anything, but what are you seeing in businesses that are, that you're in that are like a problem right now? And what's the fix?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's what the businesses we're in right now it's just poor leadership. I think there's a lot of poor leadership in our world today. And I think at the end of the day, we want to blame process. We want to blame people. We want to blame organizational structure. We want to blame company, marketing. We want to blame all these downlines from us. But the truth is, at the end of the day, it starts and everything rises and falls on leadership of the organization. So I think its first thing is like people have got to be better leaders when running their companies. They can't just, we come out of a market that was pretty hot the last 5 years and people were making money and having great businesses in spite of, right? Everybody always says to me, they're like, man, your kids really turned out really well. And they compliment me out and they're like, man, you must have been a great dad. I'm like, no, they succeeded in spite of me. Right. Like, that's what I always tell people. Like, they succeeded in spite of me. Like, I feel like, I could have done much better as a dad and as a leader of my kids growing up, but they still turned out. And that's kind of where we are in business right now. It happened. It worked. The last 3 to 5 years gave us a false sense of our leadership. And right now people are being woken up to poor leadership. They're woke. Their businesses are starting to struggle. People are starting to leave. They're not making as much money as they used to make. And why? At the end of the day, it comes down to they're not leading them properly. They're not managing them properly. And where they're good at leadership, they're not good at management. And where they're good at management, they're not good at leadership. It's kind of like the co-CEO model sucks so bad because like you don't have tenacity when you're a CEO. You shouldn't have tenacity. You should have galvanizing and inspiration and discernment, right? But as a COO or an integrator, business unit leader, manager of an organization, you should have tenacity. I always tell leaders inspire, managers drive results. And so we want to have the level of tenacity. And right now, we don't have enough people in organizations that are tenacity driven. And because of that, it's not an effective leadership management style. And so people are struggling and they're blaming a lot of other things for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a side of the same thing. I think the business is surpassing some of their level of leadership. And again, it's their fault, not their fault, right? You started a company, you were hoping it's succeeding. The things that took you to that place are not the same skill sets you need to take it to the next place. I mean, we teach these 5 levels of business, these 5 stages. They're hitting upper stages that they were never planning on getting to, and the business is catching up to them. And so I think that's what I'm seeing a lot right now, which is They weren't planning on having 20 people. They weren't planning on having to delegate tasks. They were just planning on going out there and making a bunch of money on their own. And like that worked out. And now it's the business is kind of catching up to them. So, just to like frame it right. And we've had this conversation 1,000 times, Gary. So, but like to frame it right, you're not saying you're a bad leader. We're saying you're not the leader that this new venture that is now grown up around you is now demanding. It demands somebody that is a much higher level. And what we find is the next phase of this is coming from people who spend almost an obsessive amount of time focusing on leadership, reading the books, going to the events, studying, spending time with their teams, learning what to do next in this leadership, and are open books to it, because you were the best salesperson. You were the best operator. You were the best whatever. You're not the best leader because you've never had to be. And now the business is demanding that you become the best leader. And what you're finding, what I've found a few times is there's somebody else in the business who's a better leader than you are. And if you don't skill up, it's going to create friction. It's going to create problems. And I think that's where we're finding is that the pain is coming, is somebody's coming and saying, innately, naturally, I've got a little bit more leadership than you have, and it's creating friction. You just have to be mindful to know, like, I've got to keep getting better. And I think that's what we're seeing right now is delegation lacks, accountability lacks, the ability to hold somebody to the standards that you set is lacking. It's not from a sake of they don't want to, they don't desire it. It's a bigger business than you were planning on having.
Yeah, in Rise, we have the art of delegation, and it talks about how to delegate properly.
Yeah.
Great leadership. It's all in our leadership part of our book. When you read the book on leadership, we talk about how to be a good leader and what good leadership looks like, and willing to challenge the status quo. Are we willing to inspire? Are we willing to empower? Are we willing to do these things that help us scale properly? And I love what Brandon just said. Brandon, there's a good marketing strategy for us. Skill up before you scale up, right? Like, you have to skill up as a leader before you scale up.
Yeah. You should throw that in your thing and write a song about it, Gary. I think that would be, and you could perform it next week. Live here on air, folks. Skill up before you scale up, featuring Gary Harper. Hey, maybe tell it we want a rap song. I want to hear a rap, Gary. I think that would be that would really
RPG.
Have intro music, right? Like, Dylan,
we could reach a whole new demo with this thing, Gary. A whole new demo. I think we just found it.
Scale up. That's true, though. Scale up before you scale up, because at the end of the day, if you scale up before you scale up, the business is going to find a new leader to help them get to the next level.
It goes back to the point you made earlier.
Yeah, you made the comment. You made the comment. We're not telling people they're bad leaders. I'm actually going to tell you. I think some of you guys are really.
Yes. Yes. If you need a more
And
depth
if I've
to
been in
touch.
your office before, hey, there was a mastermind we were at. You remember this mastermind? Like, how many of you guys have ever had Gary like poke you in the belly and tell you suck at something, right? Like, and then like half the room shingers went up. And honestly, we're in a room with you with all love and all sincerity. I'm going to look at you and tell you suck at leadership, right? Because if it is in the best interest of the business to tell you suck at leadership, then that's what you're going to hear.
Yeah, and sometimes you need that tough love, and it has to be distributed a little bit. But yeah, I find so often it's the business has caught them in a place that they weren't ready for, and it's kind of like, what do I do now? It's kind of like, it's kind of like having kids. Everybody's like, I'm gonna read all the books and I'm gonna get ready, and then somebody hands you a baby, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. So I think that's a little bit what I see is like people getting caught with the I wasn't planning on parenting all these 20 people. What do I do with them? And it's catching them a a little bit. So
seems like what happened at the White House last week when Zelenskyy walked in.
Bring it full circle.
The little baby sitting in the chair, and they were like, they're trying to get him all happy and stuff. It was funny.
Oh, that's good.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up with that. That's a good ending point. Thanks for watching and listening. Subscribe if you can, and leave us a review. That'd be great. We've got a lot of free resources available at a variety of places. Get all the show notes and different things about the show at optimizedhour.com. We've got a lot of resources at sharperbusiness.com. A library of resources at risebusinessframework.com. And we've got a tour coming up, Ready to Rise. It's going to be great. So check those things out. check the description for those links. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one.
And it's controversial, but I don't really care.
Do it, say it.
Consider yourself rebuked, Harvard Business Review.
You have to earn the right to get to the next level.
Process audit, not people audit.
I just want to see this done faster.
How many licks does it actually take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
I was kind of being facetious a little bit.
3,
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
2,
Screw.
1.
But we can cut that out.